Yo, and welcome back to the Banter Boys podcast. My name is Sanji, with me is John. How you doing, boy?
Doing great.
Oh, I got a gift for you, by the way.
You got a gift for me? Oh, let's go.
I wonder if that's gonna give away the clue, for who we're gonna talk about today. But yeah, it gives me goosebumps every time I hear this music,
Yeah, it never gets old. Been a while since you've heard it too.
Shots fired. Love it. Welcome back to the pod, man. Welcome back. Shall we do? I mean, I just want to chat a little bit like life stuff. You're a new dad. Congratulations. How's it going?
Yeah, going fine. He's almost 1 year old now, so starting to get into the actually tiring phase, which is just a battle to get through every day. In Norway, I'm on paternity leave, so I'm the primary caretaker right now.
Well done.
Yeah,
you must be enjoying it, especially with football right around the corner. I mean, give me all the dad time as much as possible, right?
Yeah, well, so what I've done is you're supposed to give your kid as like little screen time as possible, but I think I've found a little workaround around this, which is that he's only allowed to watch football in the Olympics.
Yeah.
So he thinks that a TV is only for like boring stuff right now. And then maybe he'll get into it too.
Oh, I guess when I have kids, I'm just going to show them the most boring form of television ever. Yeah, that's a really smart tactic. Well done. All right, I think let's rip the Band-Aid off. John, let's do fan introduction. Tell us your name, your Twitter handle, the club that you're representing tonight, where you're from, and a little bit about what you do.
Got it. My name is John. That's my Twitter handle also, at my name is John. My last name's Ray. Ooh, Sanji opening a Beavertown. Let's go, baby.
Oh, let's go, baby.
I used to live right by their neighborhood pub in Hagerstown that has subsequently closed down. That was like an American barbecue restaurant. It was so good. I support Villa. I've been supporting Villa since I was a kid. We've been bad, and now we're all right, which is pretty exciting. I grew up all around the United States, but mostly in St. Louis, Missouri, which, if you don't know, is actually a hotbed for high school soccer. There's like a lot of good EPL players that have come from St. Louis. Josh Sargent most recently.
Oh yeah, okay. Norwich
good is a stretch, but but I currently live in Oslo, Norway. It's where my wife is originally from, and I work as a data analyst at an online pharmacy. In addition to doing wine consulting, you can check out raywineconsulting.com, R-A-Y wineconsulting.com, if you want to level up your wine game. That's my only plug for myself.
Love that.
I write some blog posts. You can learn about old wine, some musings. It's exciting.
You need to drop that in the Discord.
Maybe I will.
You should.
Get that vino flowing, baby.
How about that Discord, though? That Discord is great, isn't it?
It's popping off. You're putting in the hours to grow the community, Sanji.
Yeah, I mean, I love everyone in there, right? Yeah. We've got a solid following in there, honestly. Good bunch of guys. Also, are we in the Banter Experimental League together? I think the draft kicked off.
We are. I just drafted Holland, so...
you were the fourth round pick.
Holland.
Fourth round pick. Interesting. I saw some rumors about him having niggles or something like that, like a little muscle issue.
Yeah. But it's hold on. He played like only 30 matches last season and was still like ridiculous per game and with this scoring, so it'll be fine.
For the culture.
I want Watkins though. I'm trying to cultivate a deal.
Yeah. I'm like watching Watkins right now, actually. Maybe I should do it live on the pod like last time.
We can go through a deal right now. That would be great.
Listeners, welcome back to yet another Inside Trax episode. Yeah, we're here to talk everything Villa. Quick breakdown of how these pods go. We got 3 segments, general discussion, we chat a bit of fan tracks, and then we get some advice from experienced managers like John himself. So general discussion, we just talk about impact of new manager, old manager, any ownership changes, coaching changes, previous season's performance versus new season expectations, old system versus new system. So impact of new transfers, maybe players that left, like a certain Dougie Lou that I picked on the pod last time. I must say, I've got to thank you immensely for that suggestion. What a player. What an
Last
asset.
year, my picks were pretty good, so
Pretty good.
I have a lot to live
good.
up to this year. Yeah.
After that, so we'll talk about expected formation starting 11. And then obviously we're going to chat fan tracks. We'll find out first pick from Villa, next 3 picks, which rounds they go, a hidden gem, at least a trap as well. That's one of the new things we've added in. And then obviously we'll pick John's brain. We find out, how he does FA/waiver claims, how he, spends his fab, and some of his best and worst moments, maybe last season or in his career thus far. But yeah, let's get started. So, Emery, man, he smashed it.
Pretty good manager.
Pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, there's really not so much more to say. He's done a really good job of a lot of things. But I think most importantly, as a manager in terms of like the tactical meta of the Premier League, he finds ways to put people in situations that get the best out of their talent while minimizing like the negatives in their game. And from a player development standpoint, it's really exciting to watch because I get to watch these guys that I've seen over the last 5 years with someone like Tyrone Mings or John McGinn grow into the best version of themselves. Mings was out for last season, but he'll be back this year. And
Yeah.
that's just really exciting that it's not a project that's dependent on buying a bunch of new players because your old players are bad. And if you even look at someone like Pep, when he came into City, he immediately like signed a right back and a left back every summer for 4 years. So he got a good enough right back and a left back.
Yeah.
And it seems like with Emery, this core group is going to stay with us. And that's really like encouraging.
Yeah. Any changes in coaches, staff, hierarchy of the club that, might have an influence on Fantrax assets we will be considering for the upcoming
Honestly,
season?
nothing relevant. I think the most important thing is that actually everyone is staying. So like Paco Ayestaran, who most hardcore football fans I think would remember from being Rafa's head assistant in like good Liverpool when they won the Champions League in 2005. He's still there, and he's an assistant manager that players universally love. I was listening to the Peter Crouch podcast, and he was talking about how when Paco and Rafa fell out, that was basically the end of everything for Liverpool because everybody liked Paco more than Rafa.
Yeah.
Rafa was all tactics, whereas Paco is sort of like a vibesman, but also really good with his knowledge of the game and stuff like that. So I think this group of coaches that Emery has is really not talked about enough. And there's an individual development coach named Rodri that like Ollie Watkins has given a ton of credit for his success and stuff like that. So under the surface, there's reasons why these players are outperforming their expected numbers and stuff like that. The coaches are working with them on, like, if you saw the Euros finishing in a situation like that, but through the defender's legs, that's something that Ollie Watkins did 3 times last season. It's something that they've worked on so much.
What a goal, though. Oh, my God. Honestly, deserved more minutes in that Euros. Because Harry Kane was so garbage.
Do not get me started. I was, like, yelling at the television. And I don't even support England, but, you know, I wanted Ollie and Esri to get a ton of minutes because I thought they deserved it. And they got a little bit of minutes, so...
Yeah, I thought Ollie deserved to start at least one game. I
Mm.
mean, like, fuck it, start the final. Like, he took you to the final. Like, Kane did fuck all that tournament. Like,
Yeah, apparently he was like hurt or whatever, but it reminded me of
nah,
like Francesco Totti late career, where he's
yeah.
like, is this guy really adding more to the equation than he's taking off by walking around? And Kane was like in left back positions a lot and like right back positions. I was like, this isn't quite working here.
Yeah. So let's touch on previous season performance. I mean, what's more to say? You were in the Europa Conference League. Was that like the first European campaign since like 2010, 2011,
Yeah,
something
and
like that?
it's the first time that we've gotten to the knockouts in any competition in my lifetime, I think.
I
Maybe
mean,
we got
not
knocked
just
out by
knockouts,
Rapid Vienna.
semi-finals, right?
Yeah. I think maybe we got knocked out by like Rapid Vienna in the knockouts or
Hmm.
but um yeah, so it was pretty exciting to be involved in the conference league. And honestly, as a fan, um it was a weird experience because it's a trophy that you don't really care about, but you find yourself being minorly invested. But it's a great diversion towards the like entree, which is like the Premier League season, to have these
Yeah,
games against AZ Alkmaar that you can watch with the pressure off. It's
yeah.
not like a crisis if you lose a game.
Yeah. I mean, you say that, right? Maybe it's like, I don't want to call it like a Mickey Mouse Cup. We've got many of those in England already, but I think you don't care about it if you get knocked out, but if you win it, you're like, look at me. Look
Yeah,
at me
if
now.
if we won, it would have been fire. Olympiacos and Lille were both better than us, and we can talk
Mm,
about this a touch. The performance of the team after Boubacar Kamara got injured was just terrible.
yeah.
Um, so we were pretty lucky to get as far as we did in the competition before getting absolutely ethered by El Kabi. A
Well,
Moroccan 31-year-old striker scored 5 goals against us in 2 games.
well, I mean, on a more positive note, you clinched fourth place.
Mm.
You're in the Champions League for the first time since 1982-83 season. Back then, it was known as the European Cup, but this has also been your highest finish in the Premier League since 1995-1996.
Yep.
Yeah, like, how does it feel, man?
Ah, it feels great. I mean, honestly, the part that felt the best, other than actually clinching it, I opened up a bottle of champagne in the tub, and delicious.
Hey.
Uh, like the first half of the season when we were really rolling,
Mm,
sort of onward till that Arsenal win,
hmm.
was just like the best football I've seen Villa play in my life over an extended period of time. We were doing like we felt like the team that I was always watching and like
Yeah,
why can't my team play like this? And
yeah,
finally we were playing like that team and it was just a joy to watch. Obviously, it wasn't able to be consistent over the entire season because of injuries,
mm,
but just having those sort of like 10 weeks of bliss was enough for me.
yeah. I mean, speaking of injuries, it's crazy. I listened back to our last season's pod. I think at that point, Diego Carlos had gotten like a season-long injury to start the season. And then the season that just went, Tyrone Mings,
Yeah.
ended up being that guy, right? But I guess, maybe we can jump straight into like old system, like player transfers, that sort of stuff. Like all of that is gonna kind of mix around, right? So
Yeah.
I want to look as far back as last summer, right? In terms of ins and outs. So let's say in terms of outs, I'm gonna list. Is there maybe a couple of names? I'll list a couple of names. Tell me which one you think you would have missed the most in terms of like the impact they had on your team. So I'll throw out Marvelous Nakamba, Morgan Sanson, I know you love Wesley. Obviously, I have to mention
The
his
goat.
name. Aaron Ramsey, Cameron Archer, Keenan Davis, Philogene, and Coutinho.
Okay, well, two of them are back on our team, so that feels like a cop-out answer if I say them. So I'll go with Aaron Ramsey as like the one that we didn't put a buyback clause in, or at least
Yeah.
not to my knowledge.
Okay.
And he had a really bad ACL injury as well, so
Mm.
um, we wouldn't really be using him. But for sentimental reasons, his two brothers are both in the Aston Villa setup. Obviously, maybe some people don't know that his younger brother's in the U18s now,
Okay.
and he captained the team that won the FA Youth Cup and is a really talented player. Obviously, like he's even slighter in frame than his brother, so
Is that
uh,
possible?
he's sort of like wayfish, so not
Yeah.
quite ready for the Premier League in my opinion, but would be nice to have back in the setup. We sold him for an outrageous amount of money, so
Yeah.
no take backsies on that.
So, next, let's look at maybe the ins. Next, let me see which name do I want to pull. Okay, actually, I'll pull a name that I don't recognize. And you probably will know about him. Rico Richards. Who is this person?
Yeah, he's from the West Brom Youth Academy. Like 99% of the youth players that we signed, because
Yeah.
our academy director, Mark Harrison, used to be the director of West Brom's academy. Just like all of their most talented players have come home to us. He was on loan at Stockport last season with Louis Barry in League Two. Not a particularly interesting or fan tracks relevant player. He's an AM, but for like not the top 20 pod, he could have an interesting discussion about him. Just
All
sort
right.
of like doesn't have that it factor
Yeah.
quite yet, but he's a nice youth player. I've had
Okay.
fun watching the U21s. Yeah.
Okay. Nicolo Zaniolo. He was alone. I'm assuming he's gone back to Galatasaray.
No, he's somewhere. I think he's on Atalanta now, but he's not on
Okay.
Villa. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. What did you think of his impact last season?
There were two good games.
Mm.
One was against Sheffield United where he scored like a late equalizer, and one was away at Arsenal in like March, I think,
Mm.
or April, one or the other, where he absolutely terrorized Ben White, and in my opinion was the reason that we like won that game. He completely
Okay.
turned the tide.
Yeah.
So got a little bit of use out of him, but happy that I get to enjoy him from afar now.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about one season wonder, Musa Diaby.
Yeah.
I can't believe he left. Like,
Oh, I can.
is it just one of those where, I mean, a lot of people like to be like, oh yeah, he's just done it for the money or whatever. But I mean, a lot of money can change your life, can have an impact on your family and stuff like that. And is it one of those scenarios why
Well,
he
he's
left?
also Muslim, so it's like a slightly different situation.
Fair.
And he's going to a team that's coached by Laurent Blanc that has Benzema on it, and they're trying to do like the French Saudi Arabian team. But I mean, the reality is that we wouldn't have sold him if we wanted to keep him. And by the
Okay.
end of last season, Diaby was flattering to deceive in a
Yeah.
lot of ways. He played the most games in the team, like among the players with the most minutes, but he wasn't doing like the work out of possession, and his impact was just like less and less and less. And I think the technical, like the management team was like, okay, if we can recoup our investment plus profit, turn that into player X, this is good business for us, because Diaby was good and impactful and efficient in his attacking touches, but we were often defending with 10 men with him on the pitch. And with Emery and like modern tactical systems, you can't just like carry players. It reminded me a lot of like Mesut Ozil at Arsenal.
Nice
Where like not
comparison.
only were they like not really having the work weight, they weren't really
Yeah.
like physical either, so they weren't even sitting on a player making life annoying.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I totally get that for sure. Let's see. Another name to pull out the bag. Clement Longley. Is he back at Barca?
I think he's going somewhere else, or like
Okay.
Atletico Madrid has talked about him as like a backup center back to them. I I really did not enjoy watching him on our team. Um, a lot of fans of Villa have a different opinion about it and think he
Yeah.
was like a decent backup left-sided center back. But whenever he was out there, I was just like, oh no.
All right. What about Pau?
Powell's great. Powell, I think he's probably the best left-sided center back in possession in the Premier League, and he's
Okay.
fine defensively.
Yeah.
He's not
Yeah. He
good,
is.
but
No.
it's like he if you just look at the opposite of a Musa Diaby situation, he is like not defending with 10 men. You're still defending with 11. He's just not great.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he adds way more than he takes away.
Okay, fair enough. I feel like I mean correct me if I'm wrong, but like when Pau first started, and I mean obviously everyone's kind of getting used to like how Emery plays with this high line and whatnot. I felt like he wasn't in sync with the rest of the backline, and there were moments I felt like last season early on, you guys kept getting caught out cold with the high
Yeah,
line.
really, it was just like the Newcastle game where he came on as the sub for Mings
Yeah,
actually,
yeah. First game of the season.
and then Liverpool. Yeah,
Yeah,
but we really struggle against those type of teams in general,
yeah.
and we just lost like 5-0 in a row in preseason against Columbus Crew and RB Leipzig, and those teams were scheduled because they play the style of football that Villa struggle with. And so I think the idea is like, we'll throw you guys in here unfit. You can try and work through it. Obviously, it hasn't come off in terms of a victory, but in terms of like tactical intelligence, I think it'll really help for the season that's to come. This is the first time that Emery's actually gotten to schedule the preseason friendlies.
Okay. I was doing my best to avoid bringing up preseason because the last couple of times we recorded, you were adamant. You were like, "Don't bring up preseason. It's a bad jinx and whatnot." So I'm
Well,
glad
that's
that
because we
you
were
did
winning
it.
all the games. Now you can bring it up because we've won two and lost two, so it's fine.
Fair enough. I mean, listen. So Alex called it after that first game of the season that you guys lost to Newcastle. Villa are the team to look out for,
How
and
smart does he
goddamn,
look?
was you absolute genius, right? Last name I think to kind of mention or talk about Yuri Tillemans.
Yeah, great. I think him getting into gear or like getting into form the first like until like October, he seemed like a social experiment of how far Villa fans could be pushed to the edge without breaking. And then suddenly something clicked and he was unreal thereafter, completely as imagined, if not as advertised as Leicester fans, because they were telling us how crap he was going to be. But he was he was great, and honestly, probably why we felt comfortable selling Luis to Juventus.
Okay, okay, interesting. Let's fast forward to the winter window of last season. Um, in terms of outs, Bertrand Traore, I'll pour a drink out for him. Um, let's talk about the ins though. And I feel like there are a couple of youngsters in here. I don't know if dynasty relevant or regular season relevant, but I mean you're the expert, so let us know. Joe Gauchi,
Backup goalkeeper,
okay. Lino Sousa,
left back, but immediately loaned out to the championship. He's gonna be a fringe Premier League player eventually, probably, but probably not for Villa. Has PSR shenanigans written all over it.
Yeah. We all know about them shenanigans. George Hemmings.
He's a U18 player from Nottingham Forest
Yeah?
that
Yeah.
actually seems like he might have a little bit of potential to go the distance, but I haven't seen that much of him because the U18 games aren't televised. So
Okay. All right, I'm probably gonna butcher this name, so you might have to help me with this. But Kosta Nedeljkovic.
I thought you'd never ask.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at the notes, and you've got a whole paragraph about him.
Oh, I could write more, baby. Kosta yeah, he's a super exciting Serbian right back. If your ball knowledge is truly deep, you may recall him locking down Jack Grealish in this year's Champions League for Red Star
Oh, no way. Okay,
as a
okay.
17-year-old. We've seen him in 4 preseason games now. Yo, he has it.
Okay.
I'm telling you, the best youth player I've ever seen for Villa in terms of like, he's ready for first team men's football. He's ready for Champions League. I would not feel any sort of qualms about throwing him in there in like 3 months. And I thought about including him as my dark horse. I just don't know how much he'll play this season. But I already own him in like the Dynasty League that I'm in.
Yeah.
Because he is going to be a pro in the Premier League for 10 to 15 years.
Okay.
Only
Right.
18. Kind of giving like Slim Ivanovic vibes already.
Don't play with my heart now, John.
He's 6'1", 6'2". He's tall,
Okay.
lanky,
Yeah.
crazy pace, gets up and down the wing.
Yeah.
Looks a little bit raw defensively in terms of positioning, but like every single time that the right winger has the ball, he's there sprinting, making overlaps, playing balls into the box. I'm so excited about him. I think his potential is like top.
Okay. All right. Final name, Morgan Rogers. He's been lighting up preseason a little bit, hasn't he?
Yeah. He's a baller, man. So, like, the most interesting thing, I think, about Morgan Rogers, we'll touch on him multiple times later, so I won't use too much time now, but Championship fans, including Middlesbrough fans, were like, oh, we have just ripped off Aston Villa. This guy is not that good. They're paying £8 million, rising to £15 million for him.
Yeah.
Like, there's 20 other players better than him in the Championship. But what Unai Emery and the talent team at Villa saw is him play against us in the Carabao Cup in midfield, pick up the ball, run with it, retain it, pass it on to other players, or create, a shot for himself or something like that. And if you saw what he was doing as a left midfielder in his system, it was so much of that, ghosting past 2-3 players, coming out on the other side. Super strong, really big player, and has a great youth pedigree. He came through West Brom's academy, then Manchester City picked him up. He was a player to be named later type character in the Grealish deal when Manchester City were trying to like lowball us with 90+ Morgan Rogers.
Okay.
Goes on somewhere else that I can't remember in his story, winds up at Middlesbrough, and it's sort of like, okay, Wonder Kid is not been on the totally right trajectory, but that talent is, again, top talent. Understands space.
Yeah, I saw him play against Chelsea in the cup. He scored against Chelsea as well. Pretty good goal. And then that's when he kind of popped in my head, and I was just like, oh, there's something about this kid. Yeah. And then you guys acquired him, and I mean, he wasn't great at ghost points and all that, but he knows where the back of the net is.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the ghost point thing a little later, because I have an interesting theory about sort of like Villa positionally and where the ghost points are going to come from.
Okay. So then let's quickly move to the current window. And I mean, obviously, you guys are in Champions League. You're going to need that depth, right? So you've signed quite a few number of players.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I don't know how you want to approach this.
Well, I want to ask you about a couple of outs.
Yeah.
I don't think I think there's no one really relevant. I don't really want to talk about Morgan Sanson.
I know you want to talk about Kellyman.
Oh yeah, let's rip the band-aid off for sure. Let's talk about Mark Kellerman. I got him in my dynasty league. I think for what was it? I gave up maybe 11 fab for the pick or something like that.
Yeah,
I gave up a player or something like that. Yeah.
I think it's solid. I mean, so with these like PSR deals with youth players, there is a part of me that does worry about like the player welfare, and I think it's sort of like there's an element of it that's like false concern because these players are agreeing to the deals. They're probably getting a big wage packet. They want to do it. But on the other hand, is Amari Kellyman ever going to play for Chelsea with the amount of signings that they've made? I said he would play earlier in this window, but they've signed like 20 more players since then. So I don't know. I know that he was good enough to play for Villa last season off the bench.
Yeah.
There's something that's not quite there yet in terms of quickness of decision making, but he has a lot of physical and technical attributes that you would look for in a player. Really reminds me of Kai Havertz without the defensive work rate.
Okay.
But if you think about what is Kai Havertz without the defensive work rate, it's a pretty like mid player.
Yeah.
But he is this sort of like big figure that can take the ball down really nicely and do a lot of elegant technical stuff that makes the valuation make more sense. I don't think it was a huge overpay. I think maybe his market value is like, in my mind, would be like 12 to 15 million. He's a really technically good player. And maybe just a step below what Chukwuemeka was when you guys signed him from us as well. So sort of comparable situation.
Yeah, Chuk's been playing a lot of minutes in preseason, I noticed. Pretty good bowler,
He's
man.
good.
He's good.
Technically proficient, good body, like good physical skills. So
yeah. Last transfer out to touch on. Obviously, we got to talk about Douglas Luiz. What a player, what a bowler, what a Fantrax asset last season, man. I will forever shout you out for that. Yeah. Are you surprised that he's moved on?
No.
And no, is it going to be a massive loss? Is it going to be hard to replace? Like, I mean, obviously, we're gonna talk in a few minutes about like what the old system versus the new system is gonna be like. But I mean, I feel like a lot of who you guys were last season was because of Dougie Lou.
Yeah, to an extent. So the interesting thing with Douglas Luiz is that he, much like Diaby, also had a season of two halves where he immensely let us down in the second half of the season.
Yeah.
Almost led to us missing out on Champions League and led us to getting knocked out of the Europa Conference League, in my opinion. He gave away a handball penalty and then missed a penalty himself in the same game at home. It's a 2-goal swing. Then we have to be aggressive on the road. We can't play like defensive road tactics. So, he lost a lot of goodwill in terms of like the sporting side in the second half of the season. And surprise, surprise, we were playing without Boubacar Kamara. He was asked to do more defensive responsibilities, different role, and he's not really set up for that. And Kamara is really, I think, our most important player. The season sort of fell apart without him. He is so good.
Yeah.
And sort of the absence of him really hammered home just how good he is. So in terms of losing Douglas Luiz, that's actually my big concern, is that Kamara is not back until November, because we're going to have the same issues, I think, unless Onana can do a credible impersonation.
Onana. I mean, let's talk about the ins then, and start with Amadou himself. Did you watch that interview? Was it during the Euros when the the
Andre?
reporter,
Yeah.
called him Andre, and the man's accent switched so quick to like a London accent, or he's like, bruv.
Yeah, he's the man.
So, what can we expect, you think, from Onana next season? You think he's going to be Fantrax relevant?
Yeah, so without getting into spoilers, I think he will not be Fantrax relevant for the first half of the season, and then could be Fantrax relevant for the second half of the season. So I would honestly just wait. I think he's probably going to get dropped. As long as he's playing as a 6, which would be my guess, is he's going to be playing there. That's a Ghost Point desert for Villa. Now, there are some interesting things about Onana that make him potentially interesting, but I'll save those for later. Keep everybody listening, get the spice alive.
Yeah, I like that. Jaden Philogene. He was part of an interesting deal with Everton?
Hull.
Oh, Hull. Okay, he was part of an interesting deal with Hull. I know you guys also did a deal with Everton, or was that the Lewis Dobbin one?
Yeah, that was
Lewis like a
Dobbin.
Little back and forth PSR vibes.
PSR hijinks. I think Everton got the better player out of it though, which is slightly annoying. So.
Right. That would have been Regbunam, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Is Dobbin just depth?
I think he'll get sent out on loan and then sold again if he does pretty good on loan.
Same situation with Philogene then?
No, Philogene's going to play.
Okay.
So we inserted like a match clause on Philogene with pre-agreed personal terms when we sold him to Hull for £5 million last year. Okay. And there was also a 30% sell-on clause, so basically we could get him cheaper than everybody else. And he wouldn't have come to Villa if there were not assurances made that he would get playing time. Because Ipswich, Everton, I think one more club were in for him and offering him a ton of playing time. He was one of the better players in the championship last season. Really Fantrax friendly profile. I think when he starts, he's worth having a look at.
Okay. I didn't even realize you guys got Cameron Archer. When the hell did that happen?
So if Sheffield United got relegated, they basically just paid us a loan fee for him.
Right. Okay.
PSR hijinks.
Okay. I gotta love these loopholes, man. Let's talk about, or maybe just quickly touch on Enzo Barrenechea.
I think he's going to play. So
really? Okay.
He's maybe worth talking about. He's a DM from the Juventus Next Gen setup along with Samuel Illing Jr. They were the players that came back in the Douglas Luiz deal.
Right.
He started almost every match for Frosinone last year, who were relegated from Serie A, along with Mattias Sule, who's gone to Roma, but was rumored to go to a bunch of Premier League clubs. Yeah. They were really the two good players in that team. Okay. He's the most like-for-like replacement for Kamara in that 6 role. So I think Unai will go with Onana just because he has the Premier League experience and all of that. But eventually, Barrenechea could play or play a decent amount off the bench. I don't think he's Fantrax relevant. I do think he's real-life relevant.
Okay.
He's a tempo DM, very similar to Kamara, who plays a bunch of 1-2s with the players around him while managing to not lose the ball and makes a ton of ball recoveries. So he's going to be a really useful player. It's just not a Fantrax type profile.
All right. Fair. Then let's talk about some relevant names, I want to say. I want to start with Rossi Barks. What a season he had at Luton, man. We had a whole Luton hive going on in our Discord last season. It was great.
Yeah, I felt bad on the last podcast that I was on. I kept pouring water on the Luton hive, but they were not to be dissuaded, and rightly so.
Yeah. I mean, what a fantastic season for him.
Yeah, man. I was wrong.
I genuinely thought and felt like he could have gotten called up for England for the Euros.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been more interesting having him than Conor Gallagher. Just because England doesn't need Conor Gallagher, they need Ross Barkley in terms of like
Yeah.
what they do.
Yeah. Agreed. You must be excited about Rossi Barks in your ranks.
Am I excited about having Rossi? Villa have had Rossi Barks in their ranks before. I'm excited about what Unai Emery can do with
Yeah.
Rossi Barks because,
Yeah.
as you saw him last season at Luton, I think he's matured and
Yeah.
accepted sort of like this deeper role
Mm.
where he was really successful. But Villa are not Luton,
Yeah.
and you can't be good 90% of the time
Yeah.
for Villa. You have to be good 100% of the time in that role. And that's where Luis was so good before
Yeah.
the second half of the season, was his consistency of playing the right pass. And so far in the preseason, Ross Barkley's gotten caught out a couple of times.
Okay.
He's also created a couple of goals. So I'm not so concerned about it because it's the preseason. He's getting adjusted to the system. We saw the
Yeah.
same thing with Tielemans last year, that these CMs for Unai, they are like sort of like chess grandmaster level positions where
Yeah.
it's going to take some time to get it. Like Yuri Tielemans can't come in and play that role.
Yeah.
So can Ross Barkley come in and do it is sort of my question. If you think about the football IQ that's necessary to execute it, I don't know. We'll find out. But he obviously has a number of really good qualities, and I think his like ball striking and stuff like that. He's in that deeper role. He's learned how to use it in a more productive way, not just
Mhm.
taking long shots, but actually playing switches to players and sort of opening up the play and stuff like that. So hopefully we can use him in a similar way.
Okay. Final name, Ian Matson,
Mm.
one of the ex-Blues. Took
Yeah, maybe
Dortmund.
you can tell us about Ian Matson.
No, it's still a sore topic. Given the fact that he got Dortmund to the Champions League final, not single-handedly, of course, but he was part of
Champions League
part
team
that
of the
system.
season with only 7
Yeah.
matches played.
Yeah, he's pretty good, eh? He's pretty good.
I mean, he's Chelsea's best left back, but
Yeah, I mean, you could say, yeah, you could easily say that now. I mean, now Chilwell is a bit of a dud. I don't like the stuff that's coming out of the pressers from Maresca. Maresca gives you the vibes that he really likes versatile players,
Dude,
like players that can play
Maresca-
multiple roles. I'm a little scared.
I don't know, brother. Maybe he's a special one.
Oh yeah, let's. I'll save that for the Chelsea pod. But yeah, Ian Matson. How's he looking in preseason?
We just got like 30 minutes of him,
Okay.
but he's Ian Matson. Like, he's absolutely as advertised, I would say.
Yeah.
But that's not all positive. He's like a small player that is pretty safe in possession, I want to
I'd say so. Yeah.
But that like really works well with Emery's style. And in this sort of like guide that I put together here, I had this sort of overarching point that all of these new signings are being put together in order for Villa to be better at playing defensive possession football, which is really like what Unai wants to achieve, which is basically we have the ball in your area and we keep it there. And
Okay.
not necessarily it's threatening all the time, but like our rest defending is in your area with the ball. And if you look at Villa's stats from last season, Emi Martinez was the number one seconds on the ball per game in the entire Premier League.
Okay.
And we had the least distance run of any team in the Premier League
Oh wow.
by like
Okay.
a lot.
All right.
And so this is one of the reasons why Villa is not a good ghost point team,
Yeah.
because they play fewer possessions, quote unquote,
Yeah.
than the
Yeah.
other teams. But B, it's why they're so like goal interaction or
Mm.
whatever it's called, goal involvement
Yeah.
dependent, is
Yeah.
because like the defensive possession is not geared around anything that's registered in Fantrax until you get to that second to last pass, kind of.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Is there anything else you want to touch on in terms of systems, transfers, players before we touch, like, I guess, discuss the expected formation starting 11?
Nah, we can. Oh, yeah, I think we need to talk about João Felix or like the 10
Oh
role.
yeah. Well, the rumors. Is
Yeah,
it what?
but so
Yeah.
like, regardless of if Villa get João Felix or not, they're going to
Mm.
get a player to replace Moussa Diaby
Okay.
in sort of like the hybrid forward role. You can't sell a guy for 60 million
And not
euros and not replace
replace him.
him.
Yeah.
If I had to bet right now, I would bet on Aston Villa being João Felix's next club.
Yeah.
And uh, there's a whole like value chain that changes at Villa in terms of Fantrax assets that we'll get into a little bit later in terms of like who is my pick at what position for
Okay.
top four. Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. Then let's touch on expected formation and starting 11. How you, I guess, foreseeing Villa
Yeah.
game week 1 or first few game weeks of the season? What are you expecting?
Yeah, I'll just run through the team for now. Martinez in goal, Cash at right back, Konsa at center back, Pau at center back, Matson with a question mark at left back. Could be Digne starting the games. I don't know if he's gotten back in time for United. Trust him week 1.
Where's Moreno?
Moreno's going back to Spain. Moreno,
Ah.
I would guess. Digne
Yeah.
is way harder to get off the books. He's way more settled. He's on higher wages, but he's a more influential character in the locker room. Alex Moreno's a nice guy, though.
Yeah.
But you can't have 4 left backs on a team.
Yeah.
Bailey at right midfield, Onana at defensive mid, Tielemans with a question mark at the 8 or like center mid role. Could be Barkley, but I would guess that it's Tielemans. Ramsey at left mid with a question mark. Could be Rodgers. Depends on fitness and who's impressing more in preseason. I could easily see it being Rodgers.
Yeah, same.
Shadow striker or like 10, McGinn for now. I think that's probably going to be João Felix eventually, and he and Bailey are going to timeshare. McGinn's going to play every game.
Okay.
So this is one of like the weird things is that like a lot of our fans and like doing these sort of like fake lineups are like creating scenarios where McGinn's not playing, and I'm like, look guys, he's the captain, he's our best player in terms of like consistency and doing what he does well. He's gonna be playing.
Yeah.
So it's the guys that don't offer a lot in terms of total football. Like Bailey is not as bad as Diaby, but one of the lesser workers, I would say. He's way more droppable than McGinn is.
Okay.
And Watkins
obviously
at striker.
Yeah. Are we gonna see another wonder season from Ollie, you think?
No, but we're gonna see another prime Vardy season, which is what I previewed last year, and it's what he's gonna keep giving.
Fair enough.
He is just prime Vardy.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to touch on, or shall we move on to the Fantrax side of things?
Yeah, let's move to the Fantrax side of things. A lot of this is just continues on. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So first pick, I think it's obvious.
Yeah. Watkins. I wanted to make a note that I don't think he's going to replicate the assists.
Yeah.
So I would guess that it's probably going to be around 15 goals again and high single-digit assists. A lot of people
7, 8,
pointed out that like his XA was only 4.1 or something like that, and he got 13 assists. But so many of those assists were rebounds on shots, which aren't included in XA,
Yeah.
Penalties won, which aren't included in XA.
Right.
Uh, and if you like look at XAG, it was 7 because he's a striker laying the ball off to someone who only
Yeah.
has like one defender next to them. And
Mm.
XA doesn't handle those situations remotely well. And really, we just need to say X less in life. It's a useful metric in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
but if you saw the chances that Ollie Watkins was getting this season,
Yeah.
7 to 10 assists would be reasonable in the same situations. He wasn't like passing the ball 5 yards and having someone score like a thunder bastard from 30 yards.
I'm curious though. With Dougie Lou out of the picture, does Watkins have pens?
Yeah, this is one of the questions that was asked by 32 Chickens in the Discord as well, and the
Mm.
answer is I don't know.
Okay.
I would guess not. So Villa, just because this is fun to talk about, they have a very database approach to set pieces and penalties,
Okay.
which is the players that most reliably perform on these actions in training. They use TrackMan and calculate it to like a percentage. The
Okay.
players that are most reliable in these situations in training get to take them in the game.
Okay.
So what I've heard is that Yuri Tielemans and John McGinn are very good at penalties in training.
Mm-hmm.
So I would guess it's going to be one of them, but we're not
Right.
going to know until there's a penalty on offer with Watkins on the field. And
Yeah.
he's probably only going to be back for the Bilbao friendly, I would guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Next 3 picks. Oh, by the way, Watkins, where are you taking him in the draft? First round or second early?
For first.
Okay.
I mean, and I need to like do whatever sort of like I can to not jinx him. I'm like knocking on all the wood in my apartment, but he like never gets injured and he
Yeah.
plays 37,
All the
38
games.
games a season.
Yeah.
So that's so undervalued in Fantrax. I think it's one of the areas that is actually a source of edge versus the community, because the community has gone so far slanted towards per minute based
Yeah.
stats
Yeah.
that the value of actually being on the pitch is slightly devalued.
Yeah. I mean, eventually we're gonna start looking at per second stats.
Yeah.
You watch and see. All right, let's talk about the next 3 picks you're going after and which rounds you're gonna take them.
Yeah. So again, Bailey is a nice segue in terms of talking about this, like per 90 based stats and stuff like that, because his goal involvements per 90 are absolutely off the chart. I think 99th percentile combined, or 95th percentile combined for non-penalty expected goals and expected assists among attacking mid/wingers. 82nd percentile for successful take-ons. So really effective in his minutes, but I don't know. He's the most consistently inconsistent player I've ever had the pleasure of watching, and on his day, he's absolutely unplayable. In the game against Manchester City, he made Josko Guardiola, who is like a 90 million pound defender, look like a Sunday League footballer.
Yeah.
He like, couldn't get within 5 yards of him. And now he's like fallen out with the Jamaican team. He's come back on preseason, in my opinion, not totally fit. He sort of like looks slightly disinterested, doesn't have the same separation and burst. Is it about just getting him back there? Is he going to be riding a bit of pine for the first couple weeks of the season? It's all like in play. He hasn't guaranteed a starting spot, and Unai, I think, knows how to manage him. So for me, he's a high ceiling, low floor pick. Who you've picked in rounds 1 and 2 probably dictates if you pull the trigger on him in round 3. If you took, like, let's say, I don't know, Bruno Guimaraes and Trent at the turn, maybe you go Bailey round 3, because at least that way you have like a burst scoring potential.
Yeah.
But I think I'm almost an avoid on Bailey, even though he's my second pick for Villa based on his ADP. And in the Discord, it was also asked how many starts I would hazard
Mm.
to guess that he gets this season in the Premier League. And my guess is like 29, but it could be nine less or nine more.
Yeah, it's the injury history that concerns me with Bailey. I know, like, last season felt like a little bit of an anomaly based on maybe if you started following football 3-4 years now.
Yeah.
Um,
He played through the pain barrier last season as well. He was like
did he actually?
injured all the last part of the season. He's fine
Oh,
now, but his like leg was like that's like almost bionic the amount that it was strapped up.
wow. Okay, yeah, that's a little concerning. All right, let's talk about your second of your three.
Yep. So I mean, next I've begun doubting myself already. I put a question mark after the name, which is like Morgan Rogers in round 6 or 7.
Okay.
And so here's how I laid it out. The on paper pros are that he scored 10 points per game in my home league, coming straight from the championship in the middle of the season. On paper cons is that
Mm.
that scoring was like completely goal involvement dependent, and
Mm.
he was running pretty hot. If you look at his like underlying metrics, they're not nearly as good. Uh, but off paper, uh, it's way more interesting because so
Yeah.
far he's played as a striker and second striker in preseason. He hasn't played left mid at all.
Okay.
And those positions for Villa are way more set up for ghost points than left mid. Left
Yeah.
mid is a water carrying position for Villa. It's the defensive like winger role.
Yeah.
And basically your job is to get the ball at the edge of your 18 area, beat two players, then play it to somebody else.
Yeah.
Both Jacob
Yeah.
Ramsey and Morgan Rogers do that role amazingly, but they
Mhm.
can do both of them. They can do other stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I think if Morgan Rogers is given the opportunity to show the different stuff that he can do, he looks quite good. Quite good so far in preseason. Has come back in good shape. Has a good attitude. Wins a lot of aerials. Is a tall player. If we sign João Felix, he's going to be like a super luxury utility
Mm.
player that we can plug in 3 different positions and have like a starting level player, which is what great teams have.
Mhm.
But I don't know if I see him getting the starts to justify the round that he's drafted. So
Yeah.
I
Fair.
think
Fair.
maybe for me it's just an avoid based on the fact that we are going to be signing a player for that 10 position probably.
Okay.
But it's if you want to bet on it, he could perform like a round 3 or 4 player.
Yeah.
So it's just about the risk.
Yeah. It's coming across like he could be a great like sell high asset.
I think maybe the window to sell high has already passed, but
Yeah.
I
Okay.
put it in here that if he starts week 1, I would just sell him.
Okay. Okay. Final of the 3.
Yeah, and so the final one is the one that I'm going to tell you to draft.
That's what I was waiting on. I
Yeah.
wanted to know who's gonna be my Dougie Lou of this season.
Look, the Dougie Lou was in front of you this whole time because it's John McGinn. It's always coming back to you, John McGinn, which is that he's incredibly undervalued right now. The community has completely soured on him because he was playing as a defensive midfielder for the second half of last season. And it's like he's playing as a defensive midfielder.
Yeah.
In his most similar player for all of last season, with those defensive midfielder minutes included, was Paqueta.
Okay.
In terms of statistical profile, which
Yeah,
is a way sexier pick that's probably going to go in round 4 or 5 in your league. Maybe not with the betting stuff.
Yeah.
And he scored 10 points per game in my league as a right mid and second striker. and like 7 when he was playing as a midfielder. He takes a lot of
Yeah.
set pieces.
Yeah.
I think Villa are going to be really much stronger on the direct set pieces this year.
Okay.
You might not know this, but Villa actually scored, I think, the joint most set piece goals in all of Europe last season. Despite having a really small squad, we have a set piece coach named Austin McPhee who's like unreal.
Okay.
Um, and with the team getting taller, I think we're going to be more effective on those. So the corner takers will have a bit more value in terms of the direct, like let's say an in-swinging corner, which Arsenal scored a million goals off of last season.
Yeah.
Villa scored
Yeah.
almost none on
Yeah.
direct contacts from in-swinging corners.
Yeah.
I think he'll be back at his 9 to 10 point per game value this season. And those games at DM are basically allowing you to get him for cheap. I would draft him in round 7 or 8.
So you're probably gonna get value out of him in most of your leagues if you're drafting according to current ADP.
Yeah,
Because he's been going late.
Yeah,
as
and I
fuck.
mean, honestly, I think like the ADP is like it's skewing down versus even like where you could have gotten him last season, which doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Villa are
I
a
mean,
better team.
Yeah, I mean, last season I got Douglas Luiz like what, round 9, round 10,
Yeah.
something late
Yeah.
as hell, right? So yeah, I mean, how can you not like that booty as well? So yeah, I'm all in on McGinn. I like that. Let's talk about some hidden gem or gems.
Yeah, so I just regret not putting in Kostin Nedeljkovic here because
Yeah, that's what I was gonna like berate you slightly about. That's why I said gems. You know, I thought
Yeah,
maybe you'd,
because
you dropped
I
it
put in Philogene last year, which
Yeah.
honestly pretty prophetic. The ball detector is coming up positive, but he's back and he's still a dark horse. I think he's a great streaming candidate. I wouldn't draft him,
Okay.
but he has a really fantasy friendly profile,
Okay.
and he got a lot of more confidence in the championship. Takes horrible shots, which is really bad in real life, but so good in Fantrax. Like he'll pop off from 28 yards when he has a cross on.
Yeah.
He had 3 successful take-ons per game and 3 tackles plus interceptions in the championship. Again, I don't expect him to get as much for Villa, but
Yeah.
he is a much more defensively stout player than like a Leon Bailey. So I do think he's gonna get run, even as like a closer type winger for Bailey, who is now not a defensive liability. So he'll get run. How many starts he gets, I don't know. I don't think he's worth holding, but when he gets a spot start, that's like a green
Go
tick,
grab him.
fire off. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Love it. All right. Let's talk about a trap from Villa.
So here I struck through Amadou Onana and I just said Villa center midfielders. And I struck through Onana because on paper he is very fantasy friendly given the aerials and will be playing a more progressive role for Villa. I think like the appeal of Onana has always been seductive on Everton. Like you sort of want him to get 2 more aerials a game and be a 9 point per game player.
Yeah.
But again, like because Villa scored around the most set piece goals in Europe, adding in a 6'4" guy to that box who is so good at aerials, he won 75% of his duels last season.
Yeah. He scored a few for Everton from set pieces.
Yeah. I think he could be a real goal threat on corners. And then I looked at his ADP and it's 152. I'm like, you could do a bit worse than taking a punt on Onana at 152. So he got crossed off my trap because I like him at 152 way more than I like Barkley at 82, given the amount of minutes. Like Onana feels like he's going to play much more than Barkley to me. Obviously, this could all shake out to be wrong, but Tielemans is a much more credible competitor for minutes than Barrenechea is until November. And once Kamara's back, I think Onana could play in the 8. And so that's why I was like, first half of the season, Onana is probably a trap. But second half of the season, you could get some big value there. And Unai wants him to be playing the ball forward way more than Dyche.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And Onana actually talked about this in his entry interview, was that he's talked with Unai and he was like, he analyzed my game and he said all of the things that I was really good at and all of the things that I could do to improve and how he would help me improve them. And he said, I completely agreed with him.
I love that.
Yeah, I made me feel very confident, I have to say.
That's really good.
But I think
from Unai.
Barkley and Tielemans are great spot starts, but like people are going to be dropping them.
Yeah.
Who's holding a Villa center midfielder when they're not playing? They don't get ghost points.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Cool. We can move on to our final segment, unless you want to touch on anything else.
No, let's keep it rolling, baby. I think we're doing good here.
All right. Now, final segment, we're gonna pick John's brain, get some advice. First question up. What's your drafting day tradition or method? Do you wear lucky underwear? Do you have like a special bottle of wine? Do you use Excel? Do you use Vibes? Like, what's your strategy?
You know, Sanji, I have progressed from Excel and reached enlightenment, which is just Vibes.
Yeah.
I watch a lot of football. I like watching football. I watch like the youth leagues. The one thing that I could do better if I like really wanted to win all my leagues is like watch the friggin' preseason matches. Nobody has time for that. Nah. Nobody wants to do that. It's fine. Somebody wrote a guide for you that told you all the wrong Ipswich players to be targeting within 2 weeks.
I mean, that's why we have an Inside Trax fan for that, right? So
yeah. And Inside Trax, I have to say, for the promoted teams especially, is like manna from heaven. And it's just really entertaining. I remember last year the Luton guy was just cracking me.
Oh, he was class.
He was a legend.
Class.
But there is a certain archetype that I target in almost all leagues, which is, again, going back to Watkins, I want my players that I'm using a draft pick on play 38 games.
Yeah.
And you know, obviously, sometimes by the back half of the draft, I'm going on ceiling, so it's not universal. But in my home league, we do an auction, but the 2 of the 3 core players that I targeted, one was a miss, which was Grealish.
Yeah.
But the other 2 were Odegaard and Watkins.
Okay. Oh.
Which they play every game.
Yeah.
And you can extend that to Saka. Obviously, Saka is like a 1-1 type player this year, but it's like, if they're the type of player that the manager will play with like 1 foot, that's who I want on my team.
Yeah. I'm kind of glad that our experimental league is the first league that I've started drafting in, because of our strange rules. Basically, we have to target 38 game players.
I know, and I drafted fucking Holland. 40 chest right here, baby. Wasn't a point to trade him for Watkins, man.
Well, I mean, we have Fab in here, so you never know. We can talk some deals, but I'm co-managing, so I can't make this decision on my own. Like, and he's my pod partner, so
yeah. But I'm trying to get Watkins and value.
True. All right. You don't trade draft picks, right?
No.
All right.
Well, except in this.
Except maybe no. Yeah. I don't know.
Rules are made to be broken, Sanji.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Waiver / FA claims. What's your strategy there?
Yeah, I think I've talked about it through the years, but just like to essentialize it is first half you're targeting form to flip or like opportunity to flip, really just value to flip. In second half you're targeting fixtures.
Because you've got all that information already.
Yeah, and it's also just like the league has gotten way smarter by the second half of the season. Yeah. Everyone knows who's good. Everyone that's good is rostered at this point. And so then you're like, okay, Benoit Badiashile is going to get rotated in.
Yeah.
Oh no, I told myself I wouldn't say that damn name. Well, foreshadowing to the end of this. I shouldn't have done that. You say, what's his name? That's on Sevilla now. Sambi Lakanga is going to get rotated in a double game week where he has good
Yeah.
fixtures. Like, let's
Yeah.
take that.
Okay.
Because, I mean, honestly, you're just thirsty at the end of the season.
Yeah. So back to Villa. Who are some names that you would suggest that managers could potentially buy low or sell high?
Yeah, I think so. We touched on this, but Morgan Rogers is like a big sell high to me at this point. I just
Yeah.
think more role uncertainty is coming in than he has now, and that probably drops his price like 2 or 3 rounds. So you might as well take the round comp while it's available. And he's like sort of people are higher on him right now than his
Yeah.
ADP.
I mean, it's preseason. Everyone gets bitten by that preseason bug,
yeah,
right?
it's crazy. And in terms of buy lows, I had trouble thinking of one. Villa's a pretty steady Eddie type of team.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
like I feel like people are pretty properly valued. The only one that I came up with was maybe Matson's going a little bit under the radar because of rotation
Yeah.
concerns, but then again, he's like a shiny new toy syndrome thing where like if he were already on the team for a year, I think he would be going a little bit more under the radar.
Okay. Okay. Fab. What do you do? Do you splurge? Do you spread it?
Yeah, again, so like I think this is just a pretty consistently like game theory approved tactic is that in these sort of like games where it's about allocation of resources throughout a season, you're supposed to front load your allocation of the resource because every single week that you wait to use it, it deteriorates in value. So, like for example, if you overspend on someone for 38 games, that's worth more than overspending on someone for 31 games.
Right. Okay. Okay.
So it's, I mean, I think also you just have to follow your gut there, but
Yeah.
in terms of like general principles, I like to have no fab remaining by like November. If you're in a $0 free agent league, if you're obviously you want to save ones for guys when you have no one to play, but
yeah. You know who you'd get along great with? Draft Genie. He hates his money. Probably more than you do.
Yeah, but so like last year I got Jeremy Doku, and it basically almost I would have won my fucking league if not for we'll get to that.
You can curse. This is definitely not a family friendly
I'm trying to keep it in myself. My rage. It's fine. It's fine. I'm not. It doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah, totally over it. Best and worst trades. Maybe last season.
I said I've done this like 3 times now. I think I've earned the right to skip this question.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Then let's end things with advice to old managers, new managers. Just your years of playing Fantrax, what you've kind of learned, and you're taking forward into next season.
Yeah. So this is just a small rant section for me, which is that I lost my league on a points for tie to a guy who won 11 weeks in a row.
No.
Because of a Benoit Badiashile own goal in the last game of the season, as well as the Mateta hat trick. So I will never speak positively ever again of those 2 players in my entire life, let alone draft them. I hate the sound of their names. I can't believe I said Benoit Badiashile earlier.
Yeah, you did.
He who shall not be named, Benoit Badiashile. So I'm sort of a broken man. I'm taking a more laissez-faire approach this season. Let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah. Interesting. So what I'm picking from that is what's your lesson learned there? Is Huh. I'm trying to like layman's terms it without all the bitterness about Benoit.
Yeah, well, so I think if I was actually going to turn it into a teachable learning for myself,
Yeah.
is I
Yeah.
did a no dollar on defender strategy
Okay.
for our auction because I just knew I could find defenders.
Yeah, and I
I'm like
mean
good
now
at
that
finding defenders historically, but I got
yeah.
put into a situation where I just was in a defender churn all season,
Yeah.
and then at the end, eventually you start like losing out on that roulette,
Mm.
or there's enough variance in the strategy. Maybe would be the statistical uh, idea that it prevents you from being the guy who wins the league with only 5 losses, and
Yeah.
you wind up bringing a bunch of other teams into the mix because you are going to have game week variance.
Yeah, I mean with the scoring adjustment though, your strategy ain't bad. It's
Yeah,
friendlier to stream defenders now, so
yeah. I mean, I think streaming defenders is a great strategy. It's just
yeah.
it is outperformed by being the guy who has the 34 win team because you
Yeah.
drafted perfectly.
Yeah.
So I think trying to predict that is tough. I streamed and dropped so many unreal rest of season defenders early on that I was just like, I can't afford to hold them through a sit. So like Branthwaite, for example, I had him for the
Mm.
first 3 weeks of the season before he was even playing. I was like, I can't
Yeah.
hold him. So it's
Oh.
just stuff like that where you get a little
Yeah.
pissed off at yourself.
Fair enough. Before we wrap things up, this whole own goal thing. So I had an interesting chat with a friend last night. And he was considering making this change in his league moving forward, where for own goals, instead of it being negative points, just get positive points.
Why?
Why not? Like, think about it, because it's even more unpredictable than actual goals. And every time the own goal like happens to you, like it's the most like you're always like, oh my luck, this and that. It's like why not celebrate own goals? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, see, but these suggestions always feel like the person who was the commissioner of the league got
He
fucking
is the commissioner.
owned by own goals, and they're like, you know what? Next year, the thing that owned me is not gonna own me, and it's like you gotta accept the fact that you got owned, and
Yeah.
sometimes it's the universe, sometimes it's karma. Who did I
Yeah.
harm in a past life or present life to make me deserve Benoit Badia's shield? Those are sort of
Or
questions I've been
Mateta.
asking myself all off season. And making own goals positive stops us from asking those big questions. And that's what
That's what,
Fantrax is really all about.
that's why we're here, baby. All right, listeners, that's all we had planned for today's pod. John, it's always a pleasure chatting anything with you, really.
Yeah, we went off.
Listen, I'm gonna have to bring you back during regular season like we did last season
Let's
as
get
well.
it, bro.
We need those what did we have? It was fan tracks. We had a name for the
Fantrax
pod.
After Dark.
Oh yeah, baby, let's go.
Yeah, if we hit a Fantrax After Dark,
People miss the clinks, you know. They miss those clinks.
yeah, well, not to be the biggest old guy of all time, but I hit my head really hard today, so I'm just avoiding alcohol today. But
Fair enough.
hopefully my audio quality is a little bit better because I'm not slurring my words as much.
Nah,
Yeah,
you're
you think
fine,
about
you're
the deal of it. What a ball striker.
fine. Before we sign off, any final words you want to say?
No, it's the same every year. Just have fun
Yeah.
playing Fantrax. I keep coming back and talking to you, Sanji, because we have a good time together, and that's sort of
Always.
the experience that I want to have from all my leagues. And it's a great excuse to get to watch all of the Premier League games and
Yeah.
try and learn something from each game about which players are good, which players are catching your eye. And that's like really why I do it, and I'm
Yeah.
finally in a dynasty format this season. It's going to be nice.
It's gonna be great. I mean, my final word is come join the fucking Discord. But yeah, guys, we'll catch you on the next one. Just tune in. I'm not gonna tell you who it is. I'll see you when I see you. I'll hear you when I hear you. Yeah.
Peace.